What's up, Lego builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios. I've built clone bases on wheels, clone bases underwater, even a clone base with a dance club. But there's one type of base I haven't attempted yet, and that is a clone base in space. Today, we're venturing into the great beyond and building a fully operational battle station equipped with a prison block, mobile defense platforms, and a very poorly placed exhaust port. So snag a glass of blue milk, don't forget to execute order 66 on that like button, and let's build a base. I have big plans for this battle station, but I'm starting small and building a couple mobile defense platforms armed with turbo lasers that can stay in a fixed spot or patrol the base perimeter, trapping enemies. I have a feeling these quarter-round wedge bricks are going to be my best friend and worst enemy in this video, since they're perfect for capturing round space-like builds, but can be a real pain to work with. I added a little tower to the top of the defense platforms for communicating with command, and this also doubled as a stopper, preventing the turrets from rotating too far and pointing at each other. I see space stations or bases as being very mobile and modular, since you're not building a stone foundation in the ground where everything is built at once, but connecting a series of airtight structures that are built elsewhere and shipped in. Unless, of course, your base is the size of a small moon, then it all has to be constructed on site. So I'm going to build a series of interconnected structures. The first section is going to be the prison block. This base's primary function is to hold prisoners and other ne'er-do-wells who've been caught far out in the outer rim until they can be brought to Coruscant for justice and a proper prison sale. I have some real tough characters aboard, one of which is this guy who claims to be Master Obi-Wan. Yeah, sure. This is what Obi-Wan is supposed to look like.
Don't leave me here! My house!
I have the prisoners locked away in secure holding cells, but some are going to need to be let out soon, and that might cause some problems. I don't want any hope of escape to enter the minds of those being held, so I'm sealing off the entire thing with high-impact windowless walls that can withstand most small explosives. I'm once again using quarter wedge bricks, since pretty much every space structure I've seen is super round for some reason, so I'm trying to incorporate a similar style of architecture here. I guess the people inside need to breathe, so I added some air vents to suck in oxygen. Oh, gotcha. This is in space. There's no oxygen. These are just for fun, and because I don't like flat, empty walls. The second section is a must for any clone base, a med bay. Now, this isn't a fully provisioned hospital with fancy equipment, since this base is a glorified jail, so the clone station here don't see a lot of fighting, but there's always minor ailments, cuts, bruises, or whatever this guy has. I'm also adding an eye wash station, which this clone is frantically using after seeing Jar Jar put the moves on Master Secura. Yikes.
Ah, mori.
I'm going to close off the medbay in the same way as the prison block. I decided to just make both sections the same shape and size for ease of building, and so the base looks more symmetrical. I am adding a large window to the medbay though. That way people can stare out into the black and watch the Purgles sail by as their painkillers kick in. With that, the medbay is ready to treat clones and aliens alike or dish out some spray tans. And now a quick message from today's sponsor. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where a company you trusted had a data breach? With the amount of hackers, catfishers, and data miners out there, it happens. And when it does, it is important to be protected. In the past year, there was a breach in the national public data. The incident compromised over 2.9 billion records used for background checks, including critical personal information like full names, addresses, date of birth, telephone numbers, and most importantly, social security numbers. That's why today's video is sponsored by Aura. Aura is an all-in-one app dedicated to helping protect your information against identity theft, fraud, data brokers, and more. Immediately after I signed up for and activated Aura, it started scanning the internet for my personal information and was able to locate an old password that had been compromised. It also scanned my work laptop for any potential viruses, which I found super helpful. I don't want to get locked out of my base or have my identity stolen, which is why I use Aura. And you can try it for free for 2 weeks by visiting aura.com/coconutbricks or by clicking on the link in the description or the pinned comment. That's right, you have 2 free weeks to try it out and protect your data and personal information online. Now that the smaller sections are done, it's time to tackle the main superstructure. I wanted to do some kind of large spherical build, since I guess I don't have enough to do and I just love driving myself crazy. I'm starting by making a ring of 6x6 tile connected by 2x2 ball joints. Those have a real tight connection that will help the tile ring hold its shape. I want to do something similar to the Lego globe and build some panels angling inward up to a point, so I placed a bunch of hinge plates on the 6x6 tiles. This will allow me to move individual panels to the desired angle, unlike the globe where each panel is fixed in place. Hopefully these panels will still be fairly strong, since they're going to have to hold up a lot of weight. I played around with different panel iterations for a while and finally came up with 2 designs that, when overlapping each other, form a pretty decent circle. It's a little rough at this point, but I'll take what I can get. I can always smooth out the ugly patches later. You really take building on a base plate for granted until you have to account for 3-dimensional space. To cap off the build, I'm making a little dish, and unlike most bases I build, this one needs a massive reactor in order to power everything and move the ship. Most reactors are some kind of ball or double cone design, so I'm using a couple dishes and plating them off to form the shape of mine. Nothing says good clean energy like blue, so sandwiched in between the two dishes are a bunch of trans blue cylinders, and I stuck a couple half pegs in some so I can connect the top to the underside, which will connect to the other half of the reactor. I've been loving that technique today since so many of my builds have been double-sided. I built a pipe to connect the reactor to the base. Now here's where things get tricky. This little dish isn't capping off the top of the base, but is actually the bottom. Now the entire round build is getting flipped over on its head, and the panels will rest on the dish, forming the underside of the base. I also built a small hole near the reactor since every good space station needs to have an Achilles heel piece. I've got some ugly gaps now that the panels are upside down, but it's not worse than your average Lego set, and I've got an easy fix. I built a bunch of tile panels that slip into place, covering up the worst parts. Inside, I ran a pillar of brick to help the circle keep its shape, and since it's resting on the reactor, the pillar of brick bears most of the weight instead of the panels. This is already looking so much better, and now I'm ready to build the hangar bay. Oh yeah, you guessed it, it's time for more quarter round brick. I built yet another rounded base to work with, and this one is going to house a landing pad, so next I threw in some lines designating where to land and where to fuel and who knows where else. Honestly, I'm not an aviation guy, so these types of markings might as well be a dance floor for all I know. Although now that it's all in, I think I went a little too hard. It looks like a cave painting of an Ewok sun god or something. After the design is in, I tiled off the rest of the space. Now if the clones order a late night pizza, the delivery driver knows where to land. I can't get away with my normal panel technique for these walls since I need to match the curve of the foundation, so I'm turning to my classic cylinder wall technique. This uses a combination of modified 1x2 plates and cylinders that when placed together allow the wall to bend into just about any shape I want. I've used this technique before quite a bit, so let me know in the comments if you like it or if there's a better method out there I should use for round walls. These little walls were more tricky since I had less space to work with, so I had to get a little creative with the cylinder placement. It looks a little weird at first, but I tried to build in a pattern so that the cylinder placement looks intentional and doesn't look too bad. The side walls were much easier being flat, and the hallways leading to the various sections will connect to these, taking up most of the space. I did add some headlight bricks into the walls so I could add vents as greebling to the backside. I know that doesn't really make sense logically, but I couldn't really think of anything better to do. Let me know in the comments what type of panel you would have added instead to add some detail to your space station. I used some molded quarter cylinder pieces to create hallways and added some more slopes to the back as extra detailing. I've used this tube technique and had great success when building underwater bases. It's interesting how similar in design deep sea bases and space stations end up being. I slapped those on the sides with a couple of pegs, and I'm quite pleased with how the hangar turned out. It's even big enough to hold a ship, as long as it doesn't belong to Jabba the Hutt. Last but not least, we have the command center, a place for clones and Jedi to come together, plan, oversee operations, and push lots and lots of buttons. In the center, placing a holo table for overseeing battles or getting a late night transmission from a certain senator when no one's around. Lining the walls are windows, and I used clips and brackets to achieve the iconic Star Wars window pattern. I'm so close to being done, but there's one last hurdle to jump, and it's a big one. I need to figure out how to connect all the different components together and have them floating in space. I've seen people use fishing line to suspend Lego builds in the air. I don't have any, nor do I particularly trust that method, so I'm going the old-fashioned route and using trans clear pillars. The base is touching the ground, but is so tall I need some major pillars to get the other sections to the same height, and if anybody bumps this table, I'm cooked worse than Anakin after his duel on Mustafar. Today is a big day. Some high-profile prisoners are scheduled to be shipped off to Coruscant, one of which is the notorious crime boss, Pickle Dick. Things are tense aboard this base since rumor has it Pickle's crew is hell-bent on breaking him out. To help oversee the mission, Jedi Master Aayla Secura has arrived and is debriefing the base on what to do in the event of an attack. As if on cue, a separatist transport shuttle bombs out of hyperspace, smoking and clearly damaged. Scans show no weapons or armaments of any kind, Sir barks a clone, and the ship is emitting a distress signal. What are your orders? Hold fire and catch it in a tractor beam, orders the officer. But in the confusion and slight delay, the ship has drifted closer to the base and suddenly jets to life, crashing into one of the forward defense platforms. Battle stations, we are under attack, orders Secura, as suddenly jetpack-clad pirates launch from the shuttle and shoot towards the prison block. Meanwhile, inside, Pickle and his crew are being prepped for departure, but as soon as the alarm goes off, they attack, knocking out the guards and freeing more prisoners. Normally, the base would be in a full-blown panic at this point, but the clones have an ace up their sleeve. Delta Squad. Sev, Scorch, secure the prison block, gunners target the shuttle and be prepared for a second ship to drop in. At this point, the pirates have reached the prison block and have locked in and begin cutting open the wall. A second shuttle appears behind the base as Delta Squad races against the clock to fend off the pirates and save the base from being breached. Every time I do a mostly round build, I end it by swearing I will never put myself through that torture again, and yet somehow I always end up back here. But I'm proud of what I made today. It's not the most aesthetic looking base, but boasts some impressive LEGO engineering and techniques. Plus, it's definitely a big step away from what I normally cook up. That's a wrap for this one. Don't forget to let me know what you think of the mock and story down below in the comments, and until next time, happy building.